Hello. How was your weekend? What happened to my voice? I have my notebook here, but I have no notes written down. So I'm gonna throw my notebook over there. I've got electronic notes, so it'll be fine. Max Katir's roll call. Sound off now. There's John. There's Brian. There's Eugene. There's Donna, Hank, Matthew, Chuck, Roger, Bill. I'm sorry, Bill R. Paul, Frank, Andrew, Brian, and Ken, not to be confused with Ken. I got my Hawkeye Pierce jacket on. Yeah. So what's funny is I spend a lot of time. Thank you for noticing, Matthew. It's actually it's a flannel shirt. It's a lovely warm flannel shirt because I've been freezing today, and then I got caught up in theoretically making notes and I forgot to change. So yeah. Let me make sure I'm on Do Not Disturb, and then what do you say we do a show? Or try one anyway, because who can say for sure? Great Expectations and the C-Suite Shuffle. It is Monday, the 25th of January, 2021, and this is macOS Ken Live. And the music plays, and we begin. Hi, everybody. It's Ken Ray, host of macOS Ken Live, and host of In a Few Minutes, and host of The Checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac, and from 3:30 to about 3:47 every Monday through Friday. That's Pacific, by the way. Host of macOS Ken Live, a show where we get together and talk about some stuff that's in the Apple news, sometimes stuff that's kicking around in my head. Can't talk about stuff that's kicking around in your head unless you tell me what it is, though. And I'll remind you how to do that later. Second part of the show, Dan Riccio is Riccio. Dan Ricci. Meh. There's a guy at Apple named Dan who has been at Apple for about 23 years doing some pretty big stuff. And now he's going to go work on a mystery, like in that Sarah McLachlan song. So, McLachlan? We'll talk about what he might be doing coming up in a little bit. First of all, though, Apple reports earnings this week, this Wednesday, and it's going to be stellar, according to all of the analysts. It's going to be record-breaking, according to all the analysts. Expectations are that Apple is going to report revenue over $100 billion. Some say well over $100 billion. Some people are looking for between 106, 107 billion. Some are looking as high as $108 billion. The last time the last record was the December quarter of last year. That's December 2019, the first quarter of fiscal year 2020, when Apple reported $91 billion in revenue. So even if they only got to $100 billion, it would be a significant beat. And yet people are expecting them to go much, much further than that, based largely on iPhone sales and, of course, on services and work from home and learn from home and all the stuff that we had to do during 2020 that we weren't necessarily expecting to do. All of the analysts are lining up. Even the ones who are not excited about Apple, even the ones who have a hold on Apple are lining up, saying it's going to be over $100 billion. Now, if Apple doesn't go over $100 billion in revenue, all of the analysts are going to take a hard look at what they got wrong, at where I'm kidding. They'll talk about how Apple messed up, because that's what the analysts do. They get together, or they don't get together, and they decide what's going to happen. And if it does happen, they say, see, told ya, it's because I'm smart. And if it doesn't happen the way they thought, they say, see, something's wrong with Apple. Can't have been us. This isn't my first movie about a rodeo. Let's go over some of the analysts and what they're looking for, shall we? I don't think they're going to be wrong, by the way. It's just a thing that occurs to me every time, because it always used to be, well, years and years and years ago, Apple would underpromise and overdeliver. And I think that was like in the Steve Jobs era. And I'm not accusing anybody of misleading. I mean, maybe they did. I think they probably were incredibly conservative in what they thought they could do. And then they just kept knocking it out of the park. It's also possible that they didn't understand exactly what they had. They knew it was stuff that they liked. They didn't realize how much other people would like it. Who can say? Either way, they would say, "Gosh, I don't know, maybe we'll make this much," and then they would crush it. And then analysts, after a while, analysts got, I don't want to say wise to that game, but analysts were starting to see beyond Apple's guidance. And so then they started saying, okay, well, Apple's saying this, we're going to like bump that up quite a bit because this always happens. And then all of a sudden, Apple started coming in line with its own guidance, which meant that the analysts had overshot. And yet they would still look back and say, well, here's how Apple messed up or where Apple messed up, even though Apple had only done what it said it was going to do. Guidance got more in line with what actually happened in the Tim Cook era. But of course, now we're into a year of no guidance because of COVID-19. When Apple held its earnings call for the first quarter of fiscal year 2020, second quarter, I can't remember. It was about this time last year that Apple came out and said, you know what? Things are getting weird in China, because that's where COVID-19 was at the time. Things are getting weird in China. We don't know how things are going to go. We're taking the guidance that we had off the table, and we'll talk more about it on our next earnings call. And ever since then, they haven't offered guidance, which we'll get to in a moment. I said we would go over some of the analysts that have just turned up both today and over the past few days. UBS analyst David Vogt has raised his first quarter revenue estimates for Apple to $106.9 billion. That based on better than expected iPhone shipments, based on better than expected average selling prices, and based on Mac sales, which of course are driven by work from home, learn at home, COVID-19. And yet he has a hold rating on Apple shares and a price target of $115. I forgot to check Apple's stock price today. I know that the other day it was 130 something. I really should have done this before we started. Apologies if you'll give me one more moment of vamping. 142.92, up $3.85 today. So his 115 is looking great. JP Morgan analyst Amit Chatterjee is expecting between $106 and $107 billion in revenue. That is based on iPhone sales plus tailwinds from the Mac and the iPad. He's got a buy rating on Apple shares and a price target of $150. Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives, let me hold off on him. Amit Daryanani from Evercore. That's a typo on my part. I apologize. Evercore analyst Amit Daryanani has gone Apple Car crazy. He upped his price target the other day based on his thoughts on Apple Car over the next 5 years, although it's not really based on that. In the meantime, he's excited about the iPhone super cycle. He's excited about the monetization of the installed base. That's you and me spending more money on Apple stuff. And he's excited about gross margins. He's got a price target on Apple shares of $160, recently raised from $145. Now, the reason I wanted to do him before we did Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives is because of something that Philip Elmer DeWitt said on his page today. Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives, he's fixating on the number of iPhone sales, which drives me crazy. Like no data else. And now you've got that song in your head. Drives me crazy. Can't help myself. It's because we're not going to hear sales numbers. We're going to hear rumors of, supply chain chatter and things like that. We will get revenue for iPhone, but we won't know the numbers. And yet he's fixating on the numbers, and he can do that if he wants to. He's got a positive rating on Apple shares, obviously. His bull case on Apple shares is 225. His actual 12-month price target right now, though, is $175, up from $160. And I wanted to do his thing after Daryanani's thing, because what Phil Elmer DeWitt said earlier today is Daniel Ives gets a headache if his target is not the highest target on Wall Street. So Daryanani last Thursday or Friday upped his target to 160, which is where Daniel Ives was sitting by himself. So now he's 175. And the game of chase continues. Morgan Stanley analyst Katie Huberty is expecting Apple to report revenue of $108.2 billion. She's all about the iPhone lately, although she is a good one to sort of keep an eye on everything that Apple does. I know a lot of times she ends up being fairly conservative in her guesstimates, but lately she's all about iPhone. She raised her price target last week from $144 to $152. While I have not seen a revenue guess from Bernstein research analyst Tony Sacconaghi, he is looking for Apple to report earnings per share of a buck 53. Huberty is only expecting earnings per share of a buck 50, and yet she's looking for revenue of 108. So if I'm doing this relatively right, you got to figure he's in the over $100 billion camp at least. And yet he's got a hold rating on Apple shares and a price target of 120. Just because Apple keeps doing well and just because it keeps, delivering. And let me back up. I knew nothing about any of this. I mean, I've been watching it for over 15 years, but I'm not suggesting anybody do anything with this information. It's just I sit around and think about it. And so now we're sitting around and thinking about it. I don't offer anything like investment advice at all. What's funny to me is I do remember when I worked for that financial show, TV show that I did back in 2000, 2005 through 2008, I think, maybe 2006 through 2008. I remember the guy there, Rob Black, doing a story about Nokia and how there was no safer play for phones than Nokia or Nokia or Nokia or Nokia. There was no safer play than Nokia as far as he was concerned. And everybody else I knew thought that nothing was ever going to unseat BlackBerry. Things can always change. And I know there were people who, rode BlackBerry into the ground because they thought there's no way they could fail. And then they thought there's no way they could really fail. And then they thought there's no way they couldn't come back. It would be ridiculous to say Apple can't fail. Sure, Apple can fail. It is just as ridiculous to hold on to some idea. I don't know. They all come from the angle from which they come. Sacconaghi has had some ideas about Apple for quite a while. I personally don't understand them. He can't see how Apple is going to do well 6 months from now because he doesn't know that there are going to be any compelling drivers for the next iPhone, and because comparisons for this fall for the iPad and the Mac are going to be much more difficult. At that point, are you changing your thinking on Apple shares from being a growth stock to being a dividend stock or an investment stock? Or are you just like once again proving that you have no imagination for this kind of thing? Because it was in December of 2019 that CNBC had Sacconaghi on to beat him up, to say to him, man, you've missed this all year. And that was at the end of 2019. I don't, whatever Sacconaghi wants to do is fine. I don't understand how his thinking is so immovable. There was a joke that Stephen Colbert did about George W. Bush years ago. He said, here's a man who believes on Wednesday what he believed on Monday, and it doesn't matter what happened on Tuesday. Sacconaghi seems to have come to a conclusion a long time ago. And it doesn't matter what happened. He's not going to move off it. Here, to me, is the most interesting thing. Okay, everybody has decided that Apple has made over $100 billion or is going to report over $100 billion in revenue last quarter. It is at this point going to be shocking if they don't do that, not because I know anything about their numbers and see where they will, more because everybody thinks they're going to. Even the people who aren't into Apple think that Apple's going to report over $100 billion in revenue. So if they don't do that, that's going to be shocking. Otherwise, it's hard to imagine anything surprising coming out of the call because they're not going to talk about Apple Car. They're not going to tell us what, mystery Dan Riccio? They're not going to tell us which mystery he's building. They're going to tell us services are going great. They're going to tell us they've been very excited about the adoption of the iPhone 12 line. They're going to tell us all the stuff they tell us normally. The real question, I think, the thing that's going to be most interesting is, are they going to offer guidance? Because they pulled guidance off the table a year ago when the world changed. And the thing is, the world hasn't stopped changing. I would imagine there are going to be some analysts who are going to be disappointed if they don't offer guidance. Personally, I think if they can justify not doing it, they might as well not. It's like the whole thing when they stopped reporting units sold for everything, right? People lost their minds and pulled out their hair. And now we're kind of used to it. I mean, it's funny because everybody still guesses number of iPhones sold, which you can play that game at home as well because you'll never be right and you'll never be wrong. It's a made up number at this point. But I don't know. We're going into when they pulled guidance off the table, we're going into COVID-19, and we don't know how that's going to affect things. And we don't know when we're going to get out. We don't know how things are going to work out between the Trump administration and China. There's so much stuff that we don't know, and I'm bummed to say here we are a year later, and there's still so much stuff we don't know. I may have to correct myself. I'm suddenly wondering if Apple pulled when they pulled guidance. Was that going into the March quarter or coming out of the March quarter? I apologize. I can't remember off the top of my head. Either way, there's still a ton of unknowns out there. We have a vaccine now, which is great. The rollout of the vaccine is not going as well as people might like. We have a new administration in the White House and how they're going to deal with China, how they're going to deal with COVID-19, how they're going to deal with relief packages or stimulus packages, and how they're going to deal with a troublesome Senate. All of these are still unknowns, and all of these unknowns do end up affecting some of Apple's, guidance and expectation and things like that. Does Apple offer guidance this quarter? That'll be the most interesting thing. To me, that is the most interesting thing to listen for. And we won't know until Wednesday. So meet me back here Wednesday because we'll talk about this Wednesday because that will have just happened. I don't know, about an hour and a half before we do this. The call is 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, the 27th of January. We'll talk about what we just heard on this show, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern. And of course, we'll do a fuller thing on macOS Ken the following day. If anybody wants to argue with me, by the way, or tell me what you're expecting, what you're hoping for, somebody want to defend the analysts, don't bother attacking the analysts. Man, if you want to get Brian Chaffin angry, bring up Tony Sacconaghi, because that happened on This Week's in a Few Minutes, but we'll talk about that in a second. If you've got anything you want to throw in, I would love to hear it. info@macosken.com is the place to do that. INFO, info@macosken.com. You can also leave a comment on this video. I do check the comments on the videos. So yeah, either leave a comment here or info@macosken.com. Coming up in just a second, we will talk about Dan R. at Apple going to work on something. Not going, he's staying, but he's going to work on something. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about In a Few Minutes this week, because it is back. Had a wonderful series of conversations. I thoroughly enjoyed them anyway. A wonderful series of conversations with Brian Chaffin. He is editor-in-chief of the Mac Observer. Don't settle for managing editors. Today we talked about cryptocurrency, which I know almost nothing about. He knows a bit about it, so we had a conversation about that, and that was great. We talk about virtual reality, augmented reality later this week. We talk about services we might like to see. We talk about redesigning the Mac, and of course, we spin the wheel of stuff. It is an entire week of fun. I certainly hope you'll join me for all of it. You can listen to In a Few Minutes right here on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/KenRay. You can also subscribe to the audio podcast. You are looking for the show In a Few Minutes. That's what it's called. You're not looking for it in a few minutes. You can look for it whenever you want to. But the show is called In a Few Minutes, and it is available wherever you get podcasts. To Dan Riccio. Riccio, it's Christina Ricci, and it's Ricci, right? So I'm assuming it's Riccio. And if I'm wrong, I hope he'll call me. And if I'm right, I hope he'll call me. We'll talk, but it'll be off the record. No worries. Dan Riccio's moving. What's interesting, because some of the headlines said he's out. He's out. as vice president of hardware engineering. Apple seems to list it as kind of a promotion because Apple Today announces from their press release, Apple Today announced that Dan Riccio will transition to a new role focusing on a new project and reporting to CEO Tim Cook, building on more than 2 decades of innovation, service, and leadership at Apple. John Turnus will now lead Apple's hardware engineering organization as a member of the executive team. Now, if you're like me, you don't know who that is. But if you see a picture of him, you're like, oh, it's that guy. It's the guy with the T-shirts. It's the really fit guy who comes up and talks about Apple hardware. I want to say he talked about some of the Apple Silicon stuff. So he's going to take Dan Riccio's place. Riccio, one of them. He's going to take the Daniels' places. And then Riccio is going to work on something else. And we don't know what. According to Apple's press release, he's been a leader in designing, developing, and engineering almost all of Apple's products. Johnny who? From the first generation iMac to the more recent 5G iPhone lineup, M1-based Macs, and AirPods Max, Riccio built the hardware engineering teams and scaled Apple's ability to innovate across multiple new product lines with the highest quality. After joining Apple in '98 as a leader on the product design team, Riccio became vice president of iPad hardware engineering in 2010, and in 2012, he joined the executive team as the leader of hardware engineering. And he's going to work on something secret for Tim Cook, and you can't know what it is. There's so many things that I wonder about with that. Okay, so he's had his hand on everything that Apple has done. So when I heard this and they said he's going to work on a secret project, I thought, well, he's obviously going to go work on the car. Oh, wait, though, he could be working on that VR headset thing. Oh, wait, he could actually be working on the AR glasses. Oh, wait, who knows what else Apple is doing and what else he might be working on. And what annoys me is I'd rather not think about it. I would rather say he was working on special projects, plural, because then I would think, and this is also possible, are they just trying to not have people freak out about a brain drain? Because every now and then when you hear that 2 or 3 people have left Apple, suddenly everybody's leaving Apple. It's a disaster and it's a nightmare, and they should just close the company and give the shareholders their money back. I want to say that there was actually a quote in here that said, oh, there we are. It's a thing I read earlier. He'll be transitioning to a new role focusing on a new project and reporting to CEO Tim Cook. Is that just made to get us talking about it? Because I kind of don't want to, but I kind of want to as well. The thing is, they list all the stuff that he's done, and it's so much stuff. There's no obvious anything there. Especially, the one thing that's obvious is he's not going to be working on the Mac anymore. That's about it, because, they're saying that John Turnus is going to be, doing the stuff that Dan Riccio was doing, and then Riccio, both of them are going to be working on some new thing, answering directly to Cook, which is crazy. Project Titan, we know Bob Mansfield is gone. The thing is, John Giannandrea is there now, head of AI. But he's head of AI. That would be the brains of the car, not the design, right? And again, it's like that analyst said the other day, the one who said that Apple has never built anything bigger than a car. I think it was Darianani. He said that was one of the stumbling blocks, is the fact that Apple has never built anything that big. Neither has Dan Riccio. Nor has Dan Riccio. I don't know. Somebody should burn their question. Somebody should burn their question on the call Wednesday. Who's an analyst that anybody knows? Can we get one of the analysts just to burn their question? Yeah, what's Dan Riccio working on? And then Tim Cook will say, I'm not going to tell you, and be like, but in the press release, you made it clear that he's doing something that's just, come on, Tim, it's just you and me. If you think you know what he's working on, or if you want to say, here's what I want him to be working on, come on in. Water's fine. info@macosken.com, info@macosken.com, or you can leave a guess right here as well. I'm hoping that some people in the chat room will have a guess. I'm going to go to the chat room in just a minute and talk to the people who are there. If you are listening to the recording of this show or watching the recording of this show, there's this whole group of people that gets together and they talk about stuff while I'm talking on the recorded thing, and then we all get together and we talk after, and we would love for you to be a part of it. macOS Ken Live is a thing that happens live, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern. Other times, other places, youtube.com/KenRay. Got In a Few Minutes kicking off tomorrow morning. Got macOS Ken kicking off tomorrow morning and macOS Ken Live tomorrow afternoon. And I will talk to you soon. Not only did I not bring coffee, I didn't bring water. What the? Forgot to change clothes. I forgot to. I shaved, though. I shaved for you. Mm. All right, John says the show's over, so I should go back up to where the show started. He didn't say that. I'm just saying that. Hey, there's the start of the show. There it is. YouTube is at it again. Need a MASH nickname for Ken. Nah, sure. Stubbles. No, Frank. Not Stubbles. All right, you guys are just choosing nicknames for me, so I'm gonna keep going. Oh, Mayday is not bad. I'm being so serious. No, we're just goofing around, says Roger. That's, oh, that's so funny. So Matthew says Ken Radio Ray. What's funny is Ken Radio was taken by Ken Rutkowski because he was off working by himself when I was working for Tech TV Radio. But I used to work for a radio station in Boston that was a multi-ethnic. It started off as a sports station and then became a multi-ethnic. We basically sold day parts to different people who couldn't get on the radio otherwise. We didn't charge a lot, and it was really serving a lot of underserved communities. There's a woman in there, wonderful woman named Betty Yao, absolutely fantastic person, and they used to call me Ken the Radio Ray. And they actually gave that to me, written out in Chinese. And yeah, in Chinese. It was great. But I can't be Ken Radio because Ken Rutkowski is. Still. I'm not better. It would be great doing the camp announcements. It's what I've been doing for 15 years, Roger. It's what I've been doing. 15 years tomorrow, by the way. macOS Ken turns 15 tomorrow. Trying to decide if we're going to do anything special here or just do a thing like a regular show. It's the kind of thing that back in November I should have been like, hey, I'm going to make stickers or t-shirts or something. And now it's the night before and I'm like, I could make stickers. Probably not. Anyway. 3:30 Ken. Roger raises an interesting question. How soon do you think that we'll get M1 or M2 Max? I'm wondering about that whole, like, I could have sworn that I heard somebody say that M was for mobile. And so are we looking for something different for the desktop? This was something that we actually brought up with Brian Chaffin this week because he pointed out, well, the Mac Mini has an M1. And it's obviously not a portable machine, not a mobile machine. What are they going to be? What are they going to be called? I'm kind of curious about all that. I like the idea of them doing like one for desktops, one for laptops, and one for maybe the pro machines or something, but that's just based on making it easy for the consumer to understand. Yes, Eugene says this is not stock advice. Let me stress that again. I offer nothing like that. I'll tell you what's funny, actually, because I did. So on Mondays in a few minutes, we talked about crypto, and that's in the title. And that video got more views than usual because apparently people are searching YouTube for crypto, which seems like a mistake. Frank says it appears that the iPhone 12 Pro Max is selling, but not the mini, odd since the iPhone SE 2020 flew off the shelves. Do you think that the iPhone SE is what stymied the iPhone 12 mini? I mean, it's a less expensive phone, so I mean, maybe the mini just didn't hit the price point, but did the people who want the smaller phone, was their hunger satisfied by the SE? And then the mini came out and it's like, oh well, I already got a small phone, so I'll wait. Oh, thanks, Smoke Eater. I'm sorry I missed you. And thank you for the macOS Gun Day. Wow. You remembered me without you remembered wow. And he's not even here for me to say, wow. Tim. Tim is his name. Thank you, John. Wow, Ken Goldman. Yes, tomorrow is macOS Ken's 15th anniversary. Roger says if his 6S died tomorrow, he'd get an SE. Is that because of price, Roger? I'm surprised you wouldn't get the mini, the iPhone 12 mini. Oh, that someone can hold your phone up to your face and unlock it. Yeah, you really have to be paying attention to it though. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's the same thing with my phone. Like sometimes I'll like be doing something, I'll hold it up to unlock it and it won't because I'm not looking. You kind of have to actively pay attention to it to do it. But I get what you're saying. At the same time, they could just force your finger on to Touch ID though. Eugene wants to know how bad Sakanagi is on other stocks. I do not have an answer to that question. Sakanagi, I think he's smart. I think he's a smart guy. I mean, I wouldn't. June Zhang, I can't remember who he was with, but I only talked about him. I don't want to say to make fun of him, but he never made sense to me on Apple stuff. Sakanagi, at the very least, his thinking makes sense, but and it's not his job to have faith, but it's just not a story that he buys or it's not a story that he believes at this point. And I don't know what that I don't know why that is exactly. I don't know. Bitcoin frightens me, says Frank. How many virtual currencies are there now? That's a great question, John. I think Brian probably listed 6 yesterday, and we weren't even doing like a tell me everything about cryptocurrency. It was just he just like mentioned a few. He's like, well, you look at this one, look at this one, look at this one. I have no idea. I was an idiot in that conversation, by the way, which I was happy to. It was kind of funny. He was like, okay, so you want to be the straight man in this conversation? I'm like, well, no, I'm going to be the straight man because I don't know anything. I know nothing about it. So I'm not pretending. It was a fun conversation. And everything just jumped. Oh, thanks, Ken. He's gone. Again, I'm thanking him, and he's been gone for like 10 minutes. Eco-disposable laptop for the kids. That's a funny idea. I do not like Ken. Hooray, Donna. But thank you. Thank you for playing. Expecting a party hat. You're going to have to mail it to me. I don't have a party hat. You're getting old, Redneck Tech. That's really interesting. So, Roger, a minute ago, I was saying you don't have to worry about the phone thing. Couldn't somebody just, put your finger on your phone? And he says, but which finger do I use? That's a good point. Because I assume that everybody uses their thumb or their forefinger, but you're right. If you use this one, man, well, that's mine, so you can't use that one, but you get the idea. I think I saw there was a late roll call. Webb. I thought Webb was on the earlier one. Okay, Tim was here, and you hope you didn't miss anyone. Okay, thank you, John. 7,000? That has to be a joke. It does have to be a finger, doesn't it, John? Ooh. I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking now. Well, except you can probably figure it out because I'm being all embarrassed. Right. I got to go turn this into a show. And it is good to see you, Webb. I didn't realize you were late. Well, of course I wouldn't because I was in the middle of a thing, wasn't I? Anyway, good to see you. Nose. I got to go turn what we just did. Oh, please. Please, please, please. Yeah, okay. Whew. I was afraid I hadn't hit record. Gonna go turn this into a show. You breathe through it. What kind of question is that, Roger? And then I got to work on Mac OS Ken and some other stuff. I will see you all tomorrow, right here, 3:30, 6:30. You know the thing. Take care.